Hello, my name is Aram Collier. I'm the head of programming at the Toronto Real Asian International Film Festival. I hope you enjoyed our presentation of The Taste of Pho. If you're joining us live on Cinesend and you'd like to ask our guest a question, you can send it through the Cinesend chat. There's a little kind of a black bar where you can enter your questions, and our moderators will put it in to the chat, and we'll be able to ask some questions with our guests. If you're on a phone, the chat is on the bottom, I believe. So all the comments and questions are subject to our code of conduct, realasian.com/code of conduct. And if you'd like to participate in further discussions about this film or anything else at the festival, please join our Real Asian Film Forum at realasian.com/film forum. For this Q&A, I'm excited to have a discussion with Mariko Bobrick, whose participation was made possible with the support from the CBC. So I'd like to welcome Mariko.
Hello.
Hi, Mariko.
Hi.
How are you doing?
Oh, I'm good. Thank you.
Can you tell us where you're joining us from?
I'm in Warsaw, in Poland. It's 10 o'clock in the night. Yes.
Okay, well, thank you so much for being here, and we're so honored to have your film and you, and that's one of the things that's in this digital space that we're able to have more guests this year, and so we're really excited to talk to you
Right.
today. So, um,
Thank you.
one of the things that when in our kind of programming process, when we're looking for films to program at the festival, sometimes certain films stick out for us for a variety of reasons. And one of the things is that at least in my memory, in terms of when I've been here at the festival, we haven't had many films that are about Asian communities in Eastern Europe. Maybe we're a little bit familiar with films from the UK, of course, maybe Western Europe, but not so much from Eastern Europe. So we're so excited to see a kind of a different perspective from your film. And I guess I wanted to start with, I'm always interested. There's certainly the story and the narrative within the film, but there's also the narrative of all the things, the context that went into making the film. And so I'd like to talk a little bit about your story and also the story of the film and the inspiration of it too. So let's maybe start with your story. How did you come up with this film? What was some of the initial ideas of it, and how was it kind of linked to your own experience?
Mhm. Yes, so I live in Poland since 2002. So almost 20 years ago, I moved here to study at the film school in a city called Lodz. It's a pretty famous film school. I didn't know much about Poland. I just came just because really of that ambition to want to study in school. But then as soon as I arrived here, I realized I encountered with many Asian-looking men. They were always on their own, mostly wearing a baseball cap, like as though they didn't want to be seen. And wondered where they could be from. Previously, I lived in UK, and I visited some cities. I had the feeling that I can mostly tell where people could be coming from. Me myself, coming from Japan, I could, in a way, have a feel or distinguish a little bit where Asian people, from which country they came from. But here it was a different case. I really couldn't tell. They had a completely different feeling within themselves. And then I got to know that these men are from Vietnam. Vietnamese community here in Poland used to be the largest minority in Poland. It changed now after Poland went into European Union, but it still is a large minority. And that time, as when I came here, it was October, and it was before global warming was so visible, and there are lots of snow, and it was very, very cold. And I saw this Vietnamese man. I was very young then too, so I didn't know much about Vietnam. I was thinking that this is like a really warm country with lots of palm trees and seas, and so to me, that image of man who came from this very hot, warm climate into this very cold, gray landscape really somehow stayed in my head. And I guess I found it really cinematic, that contrast. And so that was a really like initial, I think, thing that I took in order to make this movie.
And so where did the process of starting to write this film begin?
The writing started much, much, much later after I finished actually studying. So I guess in about 2010, I had that little idea to make a movie about a Vietnamese man living in Poland. And it just really gradually grow into this sort of two different plot. One is that it's about father and daughter, and the other is that the father is a cook of Vietnamese restaurant. So yeah, took a lot of time.
So you were starting it around 2010, and at what point did you have a script?
The script, actually, the actual writing of what you call that sit and write, that started only, I think, in 2012. And then I finished it by 2014, and it took another 4 years to finance it. And then I shot it only in 2018 for 4 years of looking for budget. And here we are today.
Yeah, we had a talk with with another filmmaker, and she talked about how when you are embarking on a project, you have to decide at a certain point how much you're willing to live with that film, because it's like moving in with a film or moving in with another person or entity, right? And I think it's really important to hear your trajectory of the film, and that like it is this multi-year process too, and that like that I think people don't realize that certainly for more independent films that you are going out and producing yourself, that it does have this long trajectory and you do have to live with it, right?
Yes, right. But then to me, it really is and still is because I'm writing something else too now, and it's completely intuitive thing and almost subconscious thing. But it's not like, oh, I want to make this movie and no matter what, I will spend another 10 years or 20 years to make it. It's not really like that. I think depends on, of course, everybody's different. But in my case, it's just, I think, really some sort of conviction that I need to make this film, It's a necessity. It's not something you can foresee. And of course, you never know if you will make it or not. So it's really only crazy people can do this.
Yeah, no, it's been great to talk to people because another one of our filmmakers, he mentioned that like, and this is everybody's different perspective as a filmmaker, but he was like in some ways like making a film is like going to battle, right? And so but I'm curious, this word conviction, so what was some of the conviction that you had to tell this story, to make this film?
Yeah, I think there are two different things. One is that, or three even. One is that I was brought up by a father by a single parent. So that was one thing I think probably very strongly reflect into this story. Although it's not autobiographical, because my dad is not a cook, and I'm not Vietnamese, or like I never grew up in the way the girl did, to be born in another country than where your parents come from. No, not such a thing I experienced. But then still, that story of father and daughter do come from my life. And another thing is that living as a foreigner in Southern culture for a long period of time, that's part of my life. So it naturally really sort of reflect into the story. And the sad thing is that I need to, I need to really believe in that I'm going to make some film, So it sounds ridiculous, but like if it's a fast movie, so it's almost like battle, maybe not even a battle, because you can fight when you know who is the enemy, but then first movie, it's almost like, I think, at least for me, I never knew if I was going to make it. So I just really needed to believe in something, that this will happen. And it's almost like in a way a bit like an illusion you create for yourself that this is it, that you're going to make. And
It's kind of like you felt like you had to prove it to yourself.
yeah, something like that, I guess. Yeah.
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 No, that's good. That's really important to hear. I in terms of, so when you're writing this script, you're kind of like doing the job of like, you have the script, you're trying to find financing. Maybe you can talk a little bit about those kind of parallel tracks, because you're also preparing to shoot the film, and maybe starting to reach out to community and start casting. What was that process like?
Actually, I have to say I was very lucky in terms of finding producers. When we say we were looking for budget in Europe, it's it's a little. I believe it's a little bit simpler than in North America. You basically apply to a national film fund or regional fund, so you at least know where to go. And so I was lucky to have these producers who were very familiar with how to finance films as such, low budget movies. And so as soon as the script was ready, I entrusted them the entire thing about finding money. I basically had to go up and maybe introduce myself to the film fund and so. But otherwise, I didn't need to do much. But casting and everything, actually, it was only casting that we did before we went into production, because that was the only thing we can afford, So casting process took about 2 years. I think we started in 2016. Yes.
And was that something that you were planning so far ahead in that, like, or you were planning very far ahead, or because you knew it might be a challenge?
Yes, exactly. Because here, of course, it's, as I said, Vietnamese biggest minority. Still, there is no Vietnamese actor, professional actor, of man in this age and girl in this age. So we knew it would be really big challenge. It's also true that lots of Vietnamese people living here don't speak Polish, or not everybody is necessarily is interested in coming out, on screen and being center of attention. And also, most of people, actually, majority of people are busy. Basically, they have work, they have a reason to be here. So which is mostly about earning money. So to find somebody who can just, get out of his job and be in shooting for months and, dedicate himself so much to his time, so much to sort of this side job or sort of hobby, we knew it's going to be very, very hard. So that's why we started it much earlier than even before we knew we got the money, because we knew at the point if we get the money and we went into shooting, it would be too short time, to do the casting, since we knew we can't cast anyone professional.
Okay, so let's talk about some of the two main roles, the father and the daughter. So Long is the father. So maybe can you talk about the process of finding an actor for this role?
It's really funny because, as I said, like, oh, we did casting for 2 years. It sounds like we saw thousands of people, and we did. But actually, Long is a man who came to the very first casting we did. And there were about 20 men, and I knew he's very good. He's almost probably perfect. But since this was the very first casting, I was thinking that, oh, there must be someone who is better than him. We only started,
Yeah, yeah.
So it went on, the casting went on and on and on, and I never really saw anyone better than him. But then also I got a bit carried away with the fact that I was actually looking for someone a little bit different than Long, someone who I was thinking that the character should have a different quality than Long, someone who is a bit more troubled, someone who is maybe more, well, I don't know if Long doesn't hear this, so if I can, someone who is a little bit more masculine,
Like that's what you had
and
in your head. Like you had a
yeah,
more fixed idea in your head.
yes. And although I knew Long is very good, and then these years passed, and then we finally had to make a decision. I thought, well, there were a few other interesting people, but still, Long had this special something that nobody else had, and I realized that it's him. That he should play the role. But what's really funny is that Long came to the casting not really because he wanted the role. He was never interested in being an actor, but he came because his son, his second son, he has three sons, and his second son, who was back then, I think, about 17 years old, told him that he wants to be an actor. And that kind of came as a shock to Long that his son wants to, well, pursue acting, which is obviously a very hard job. And Long wanted to sort of convince him that it's not a good idea. And so they had this little quarrel, fight. And Long sort of wanted to prove his son that acting, being an actor is such a hard job, because every time you go to a casting, you are rejected, you have to impress the director, you have to impress everyone and keep going to this casting and have to get used to being rejected. And so so he took his son and then came to our casting, basically. And 2 years later, it turned out he has the role. And so that's very, very funny and cute story. And
So the lesson
afterwards,
didn't work at all then, right?
no, it didn't. It didn't, and it really didn't. I'm completely not, because that son went into. He passed the exam to NYU acting class, and he's, I think, studying there at the moment. So he's doing very well with what he with his dream, and yeah. So it's very funny.
It's always funny as a parent when things like backfire on you like that. That's a pretty big
Yeah,
one.
yeah, it's very big.
Yeah, yeah. I just wanted to mention that Long is the name of the character, but it's also the name of the actor too. I just forgot
Yes.
to clarify that.
Yeah.
That's a great story. I'm so glad you shared that, because it's it's so funny. I'm curious. Like you said, there was something special about Long, and so what was it? If you're able to articulate, what was it that kind of won you over in terms of what kind of characteristic he brought?
I think that like what really interests me and surprised me in him is that he is really enigmatic. He has this little smile always on his face. He just is he. You can't really know what he is thinking. And that's something so fascinating. I do have a tendency to reject, let's say, psychological explanation during a film. I don't like it so much, and but then nevertheless, things happen, and the characters has to express what they feel. But somehow it's Long. I have a feeling that he doesn't really need to do much with his faces and sort of emotions. He's able to sort of convey a lot of things just by being there, or that's what I feel. So he has this natural acting talent, I think, and also he's. I think camera likes him. In everyday life, I would never think that he can be a protagonist in the movie. He looks very different, but as soon as he appears in front of camera, he has this presence that actors need to have, and he just even doesn't need to be psychological. He's there and is able to sort of be a character of a movie character, because he's not an actor. It's not easy, and he's able to do that. So
yeah, I mean, one of the things that I really liked about him and his character is that he's a very gentle person. Sometimes you will see kind of intergenerational parent and child relationship and be very like very antagonistic, but he's just a very gentle man, and something that it's good to see different types of men on screen, so I'm also curious then is how you found Lena. So Lena plays Maya in the movie.
Yes.
Is that right, Maya? Am I pronouncing it
yes,
right?
it's a name that she chose. Lena chose the name. She wanted to be Maya. So I said, that's fine, she can be
Was that the
Maya.
name she wished she was named or something?
I guess so, yes. That's her favorite name.
Okay, so how did you find Lena?
Yes, so I had for the role of the girl, because it was a bit simpler to look for a girl. So I already had this girl who was really beautiful and really mature and wonderful actress. She could have been. But as soon as I decided Long is the father, I had to admit that they don't match. They didn't have the same flow. As you just mentioned, he's very gentle. And this girl was opposite. She was harder. She didn't have anything of Long. And I was thinking that this has to be somehow changed. First, I thought maybe through clothes, through the way she talks, but it's not that. I mean, they are not actors, so what they are, like, quite quickly sort of emerge on the screen. Their nature is not. One cannot really hide it, and so obviously I thought I had to look through all the other girls I met before, and during that process, production just by accident called me and then said that there was a girl who I actually wanted her to come to the casting, but her mother never replied to email. And this mother just got back to us saying that she never realized, she never noticed the email from production inviting Lena for casting. And after 4 months, she was just like cleaning her spam account and noticed this email from production that Lena is invited, her daughter is invited to the casting. And yeah, so can we come now? Oh, okay. 1 month before shooting, interesting. So I had Lena meet with Long, and it was great. I knew immediately this is the girl. They just sort of they liked each other basically. I believed they are family, you know. So yeah, that's it. She came in 1 month before shooting. So
Well, it's always, you know, it's always one of the things that you hear about these kind of good fortune things that happen to make a film come together. So I'm curious. You know, I'm mixed race Asian myself. Was it hard to find a mixed race girl, and were you always looking for the Maya role to be a mixed race Vietnamese and Polish girl?
Yes, absolutely. It was important to me that they are mixed race because you can see it, you know, and um, for me, why this was important, because the mother is their mother. I mean, her mother is Polish, and that's something that's not told exactly in the movie, how she died and so on. But it was very important for me that you can feel the presence of the mother in the house where they live, and of course in her, because she's mixed race. So, you know, it's not only about being similar to one of them, but it's just more about that this girl is missing half of her in a way, you know. Her story is so much around this mother, not only the father. And so that was really, it's not only her, of course, it's for him too. He never talks about the mother, but still I think they have this great longing to that missing mother. And this is why it was very important for me that one can see. I mean, not everybody see it, but one can see that that I can see that she has Polish blood too.
Well, you know, Lena is so great, and she's so sweet and so cute. So it's like really glad that worked out. You know, it's interesting that you're kind of talking about some of the themes of longing and kind of like loss and grief. You know, I mean, I think in some, you know, doing research about the film, and you see sometimes it's presented as, oh, Long has a, you know, trouble adapting to European society, but I don't actually think that's true, right? Like it's more, it's something much deeper than that. He's actually quite comfortable, I think, in his place, in his home, but it's kind of longing for a different time, and there is definitely grief in the film, both for his wife and her mother, but also maybe for a different time. And you know, what about those themes were something that you were interested in exploring?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, you are right saying that the film is not about a man trying to get integrated into Polish society. I don't think so. I think, as you said, he's integrated completely. It's but they long for well belonging, you know. They long to belong, I think, to each other, to because I expect, as I wrote that the mother has died a few years ago, and where it takes time for family to sort of like name yourself this new family of father and daughter. I think they had to build these rituals that they wake up, they do all these things, lunch packing, getting dressed, and then they go out and they come back and they eat dinner. I know that rituals are extremely important in a movie, and it's because that's how they build a new family. And sort of, I believe that they never really almost talk about the mother because they're afraid, to break, afraid to not to be able to continue being on their own if they start to talk about her. So that was actually to me the most important part of the movie, which I also a little bit hid it. So it's not like a plot. It's more something that's sort of atmosphere that they live in, and yeah. Well, that's yeah. I'm happy that you mentioned about that. Basically,
No, thanks for sharing about that too. Now, I just wanted to, sometimes it's fun to talk about some of the smaller details in it or specific things in a film, and as the writer of this film too, you have kind of intention behind everything that you're writing in a script. So I'm just interested in how in the washing machine, and kind of like what was your thought process in centering this kind of plot point in the film around this particular item, this appliance.
yeah. Well, it's interesting. Yeah, a lot of things really come intuitively. So at the time of writing, to be honest, I wasn't that aware about this washing machine. I was thinking rather about that because film is very domestic, lots of things around things, about skirts, about lunchbox, about washing machine, about cassette, wallpapers, and all these like little elements of domestic items actually play a lot of role in this movie. And to me, sort of washing machine was, it sounds, it doesn't sound very good, but sort of representative of how Long and Lena Maya's relationship start to go wrong, but it breaks, and then they sort of start to show to each other that they have a bit of, sort of trouble in the house. So, but then later, much later, I understood after writing it, I realized it's really not only about that. It's more about that Long wanting to fix that washing machine is actually mean that he's kind of person who prefers to fix things than to immediately buy a new one. Obviously, it's also about money, but that washing machine actually is from 70s, from communistic time, and of course some people still use it. It sounds maybe crazy in Canada, I'm not sure, but here it happens, and the mentality of people here who spend adolescence here as in the communist time is very different from what young people are now, including myself. All things break. Maybe it's better to get new one because it's cheaper. And Long is really sort of to me like this old school man who prefer to do things his own way. That grandmother tells him to buy a new washing machine, tries to give him money, and then he rejects it. He prefers to fix it because that's his way. And that's a kind of, really that washing machine is about Long, that he wants to, he needs to be who he is, he doesn't want to let the other people change him. He's a bit stubborn, gentle, but very, very stubborn, persistent in his way of being, and so that's why the fact that he actually buys the washing machine in the end for his daughter is touching for me, you know. So that washing machine is really about Long, that he is this man who is old school, doesn't want to change himself, but in the end of the film, through this small journey, he's ready to change into a new man, in a way, the new washing machine.
Well, thanks. We have a couple of questions that are coming in from the audience, and so I want to ask you about that, and I'll read them out. Though I want to ask you just actually, I'm going to ask you a little bit of a fun question. The movie is Taste of Pho, and pho is an important kind of visual thing in the film, but also very sensory to us, right? Especially for those of us who love to have pho. So how do you like your pho? Like what's your favorite? What are the things that you like to put in it? What do you like?
Yeah, I like pho with a lot of herbs, except for coriander, which is something I can't take, unfortunately. That's such a shame. So lots of herbs and lemon, and some chilies. Yeah, I love it a lot. I mostly eat pho with beef.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Great. Right. I like brisket. I like the tripe, like the stomach, and then
Yes.
lots of herbs. And then I don't put sauce in it. I have a little bit of sauce on the side, so that's how I like it.
Yeah.
Okay, so thanks for that. And hopefully everybody can talk about on the forum about like how they like their pho, because everybody's different. So the first question is. I noticed there were a lot of downward shots aimed at the feet of the subjects. Are there any particular reasons for this?
Yeah. Yes. There are few reasons. One is that actually, to me, it's not only feet, but there are lots of hands and feet and objects in the movie. Feet is just one of them. Or shoes, actually, one of them. It's because I somehow felt that this story should be told through objects that the characters use or characters adore, some things that they are attached to, and that how these things change by as time goes through, which is, for example, a skirt that Maya is wearing, which I think repeats 5 times the shot of Long ironing skirt. We never see Long ironing skirt. We see his hand ironing the skirt. It's like, it's a long lens, so big skirt on the screen. So the shot is really about skirt being ironed by man, not Long ironing skirt. And that protagonist attachment to things was sort of my I really can't find a better word, but idea, my way of understanding this movie. Is that and then
that's great.
the shoes is because I have a feeling that shoes tell a lot about people. I always thought about this as a child, that if somebody has shoes, particularly I always thought about men having this long, how do you call that? The shoes with a really thin, like this triangle ending. The leather shoes.
Yeah.
If man has those, or the man has like Adidas, it makes a big difference about that human, the person. And I don't know, somehow I thought rather than being psychological or like be expressive in acting, in many cases, we in everyday life define, like look at people and define them or guess who they are through things they have, how they wear, or what's the shape of hand they have. And that's like a bit sneaky way of observing, but then also truthful, I think, authentic way to observe people. And that I wanted to have in the movie. And also, if you like somebody, that you always know how their hand or feet look like. I think, Lena has this very special hand, and I don't know, it's maybe of some sort of fetish too of mine. But,
Well, it is really, filmmaking process is so much about attention to detail, right? And because all of these details add so much, right, and add up to the characters, add to the story. So the second question is about the collaborative aspect of directing a film. And so I'm not sure if this is specifically, I guess talking about your process in terms of how you work. So how much did you hold tightly onto, and what did you let go of during filming? For example, if the actor took his role slightly in a different direction with a line or in a scene, do you let that happen, or were you more sticking very closely to your vision?
yeah, I have to tell you that Long and Lena uh, were not professional actors. So they are very often doing things really intuitively, and they really felt comfortable when they knew the line and when they knew why they say it and so on. So when they asked me, I exactly told them what I want. And if they felt they don't understand things, then I would, of course, explain them. But I was quite precise in what they were supposed to do. And also, because of how it's made, it may not feel too much that way because, of course, it's edited. But the things are shot with one shot very often, like entire scene one shot, or shots were very, very long and very precisely choreographed to have a proper focus, so long lens. So they had to be very, very precise, actually,
Yeah.
in terms of their positions. And so I wouldn't say, lots of directors say that, a lot of freedom and let actors do what they want. In my case, I think in case of this movie, I think they felt very well that they are told exactly what to do. So I helped them that way to be very precise, and so there were not much accidents. But nevertheless, because they are not maybe professional, they did many things that they didn't know they were doing. Like, for example, I don't know if you know this, but Long has this strange, like, facial expression that you don't really know what it means, but something like this, like, you know, that he does. And I was thinking in the beginning, oh, this is so weird. I don't know what it means. It's really confusing. And I was telling him to not to do it. He didn't know what he was doing, so I would call him and show him in the monitor, like, this is what you do. Don't do that. That's really strange. But then he just couldn't really change. He kept doing it, and I realized at some point that this is great, I'm the stupid one, let him do it. And he surprised me by that, So that was, I think, a few days after the shooting we started, and from then I really stopped telling them anything about some things that they do unconsciously, that I always waited for such a thing to happen, and many of them are actually in the movie. And so in terms of dialogue and positioning, I was very precise, but then I really was waiting for them to do some unexpected things that I didn't expect, sense that they didn't control.
And that's and I think that's almost sometimes the magic of working with people who are not professionally trained actors or don't have a lot of experience, is that they can bring some of that kind of magic, right, or
Yeah,
embodiment of that.
yeah.
So we have another question. So you mentioned that you didn't experience growing up in a different culture. Did you do a lot of research to capture details of the immigrant experience? For example, Maya's desire to fit in, throwing away her quote unquote weird lunch every day, something a lot of immigrant kids in Canada can relate to.
Yeah. Actually, I didn't do research on that. As I said, I didn't experience growing up in different culture, but well, I came here as already, I mean, to Europe as grown-up person. But then still, of course, every day still now I feel myself living in a foreign culture, or other people perceive me as somebody who is living in their culture. So that's really, you know, every time I'm out of my house, I have to be aware of that. So yeah, that's one thing. But the other is throwing lunchbox. It makes a lot of impact on people. This thing, and it's very very interesting because there are people who say such as like this question about throwing lunchboxes so close to something lots of immigrant kids do in Canada. But then at the same time, I was also often told Polish people saying like, "Oh yeah, I hated this sandwich my dad made with this thick yellow cheese," you know. So this girl said, like, I was throwing this every day in rubbish box. Or before she went home, she was checking them in the nearest rubbish box. So, uh, yeah, it's both. I think it's on the both thing, that kids in general is rebellious, and that's how they have to grow up. That's the process how they become himself or herself, I think. So therefore, throwing lunchbox, something that parents force you to take, is like, let's say, way of creating or like building or believing in your own identity in a way that I'm not this. I don't want to be represented by this food. Whether if it's about being foreigner or if it's about being a different person than your parents want you to be, like the skirt that Maya is forced to wear every day. It's not really about her being Vietnamese or Polish. I think she just doesn't like this certain skirt, and she wants to wear trousers and will have these holes like punk, like hole, Nirvana trousers, and that's not actually too much to do with the fact that about being foreigner or wanting to fit in as a foreign person, but wanting to fit in as Maya, you know. So
Oh, that's
so
great.
yeah, it's because of that. Yeah,
Yeah.
I think.
We have another question about shoes. So, do people take off their shoes in Poland? Here, a lot of times it's families of color that do that. So initially, I thought it was related to that, but that could be normal outside of North America.
Yeah. Here it's lots of snow in the winter. I mean, not anymore after this global warming becoming extremely visible. But until a few years ago, there were lots of snows in the winter, or maybe not a few years ago, but 10 years ago. So you have to take off your shoes, otherwise you really wet the floor and make it muddy. So yeah, it's everybody takes shoes off here, mostly in winter.
Yeah,
Mhm.
for sure. Okay. We're learning things here. Okay.
Yeah.
Another question was, I was particularly entranced by the storyline where the Vietnamese restaurant comes under new management, new ownership, and becomes a sushi slash Thai restaurant. I saw it as partly a commentary on the ways immigrant people are pressured to act in order to adapt in a different land. can you share a little of your thought process around this plot development?
Yeah, it came to me. This idea came to me. I was living very shortly, for a few months, or 4 or 5 months in Paris, and there I was often going to this Japanese restaurant, sushi place. It's not even Japanese restaurant; it's a sushi restaurant, which is like, well, let's say, cheapest kind of sushi bar that's available in Paris, and it's everywhere really. I don't know; it may change now because it's a long time ago. And it was always run by Chinese, I think, second or third immigrants, and they of course spoke perfect French. And there was this particular bar that I was going, and this man from that restaurant, who was a waiter, he was very kind to me always, and he spoke only French, I spoke only English, so we couldn't really communicate. But I was like, s'il vous plaît. And I don't know, I felt like really strange attachment to that place. I really like that man, I mean, but not that. It's just that he made me realize, it doesn't matter, because sushi, in Japan, it's you feel like they are sort of presenting this food as something very Japanese, And then as I was in France eating this sushi at this man's place, and he must have felt that, this is a Japanese girl who really sort of like misses home and wants to eat sushi. I felt like, this doesn't really matter where the food comes from. This man has this place, a sushi place, and he lives with it, and this is his sushi, and why not? This is great. It's how life goes on and how the world is turning around. So I felt really at home and somehow warm, even more than at home. I was touched by that place. But at the same time, I also imagined that these places maybe were Chinese restaurant at some point. Maybe in 80s or 90s. And that's why maybe all these little sushi places are run by Chinese people. Maybe these were different restaurants. And that bit, I mean, it didn't hurt me, but it really stuck on my mind that it must have gone through some change then. And what kind of change would that be? They had to make a big business change, and that's a life of lots of immigrants, I think, who work in gastronomy, restaurants. Yeah.
Thanks. I mean, it's really interesting to see how all of your experiences and in different parts of Europe have kind of like added up to this film that you made. We only have a few minutes, and I know I mentioned that I'd like to ask you a few of these kind of like rapid, just quick little questions that we do on our Relation Backstory podcast. So hopefully I can just ask you these real quick, and if you have some answers for these, that'd be awesome. So when you're on set and shooting, do you have a ritual of your own? Something, you mentioned in the film there's lots of rituals, but what's your ritual when you're shooting?
Oh, I don't have really any. I don't have any. No, but I normally come the first on set. I'm very early because I need to. I mean, I'm pretty precise in many things. I make shot lists, and then I pretend I know everything, so that, But then what I do normally that I come really early in the morning to the set, which is completely ready, and then make quickly all the changes. I make new list of shots completely differently than I planned, and that's maybe can be called ritual because that happened every day. But it's like
And
ritual.
then your crew is ready for it, right?
Uh, and then they come and then I say like I changed everything. It's not gonna be like that anymore. So yeah, that's not ritual, but that's what I did every day.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's see. Oh, okay. What is a film that changed the way you saw films, or changed the way you saw your life?
Yeah, I think I have to say he's not my favorite director or anything. Oh, I mean, he's one of the definitely favorite director, but Hong Sang-soo's film from Korea, he really changed how I see films very, very much. Yeah, for not
Okay.
being plot driven, for
Yeah.
being
Yeah.
so spontaneous and for being so yeah, well, of his own, completely his world to be, yeah, well.
Was there any one of his films that really stuck out? I mean, they have some similarities in between them, but.
Yeah, the first film I saw of him was called Tale of Cinema, and that really shocked me. But maybe the strongest film I think is maybe Woman is the Future of Man. Yeah,
Okay. And
I
now,
think so.
second part of that question is a film that you feel kind of bad that you like it, but you still really love the film anyway. Like you a guilty pleasure is how
No,
we
nothing
call it.
like that. Nothing like that. I
Nothing,
watch a
nothing.
lot. No, I watch a lot of films, and I never feel guilty for watching them. I really like. I don't know. Well, I don't watch porn movies, but I watch lots of American movies. Hollywood movies. Well,
So
yeah.
what's your favorite Disney or Marvel movie then? How about that?
Disney. I like the best. Jungle Book.
Uh
I
huh.
think it's from 60s probably.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I didn't know no Disney movie until I had children.
Of
But
course,
now
yeah.
I watch them and really Jungle Book is a wonderful movie. I love it.
Going through the
Yeah,
back catalog now. Then.
yeah, yeah.
Okay, and this is our last question, and this is the one that causes a lot of fights in the office. But and you can only choose one of these four choices. Is you have to pick one. So rice, bread, noodles, or potatoes. What's your favorite? You have to pick one.
Noodle.
Okay, well, hey, taste the pho, right? So.
Yes, noodles, 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 definitely. No, I love rice. Of course, I love rice. I mean, rice, I really, maybe I need rice. But at the same time, I mean, noodle is so much variety. It can be pho, like rice noodle. It can
Yeah.
be egg noodle. It can actually also be spaghetti.
Yeah, yeah,
It
for
can
sure.
be udon, ramen. Yeah, noodle.
Okay, well, we're keeping score during the festival of all the guests that are giving their votes. Just real quickly, is there? Do you want to tell us about anything that you're working on now? You mentioned you're writing a new script, or just real quick.
Yes, I'm writing a script about circus acrobats during martial law time in Poland, which was between 81 and 83. Yeah, it's been very difficult.
Okay, well, we'll make sure to look out for that then, and
Yeah,
so good luck with writing that.
thank
That's
you.
all the time we have, but we're so glad to be able to have this conversation, and hope you have a good night. I want to thank Mariko for joining us. Thank you to Jamie from Toronto Sign Language Interpreter Services, and to our producers, Mimi Vong and Josephine Cruz. If you'd like to discuss some more, make sure to check out the Relation Film Forum. And just reminding you all that Relation is going on until November 19th. So you can still get your tickets and check it out at relation.com. So please take care, everybody, and stay safe.